That's amazing. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Against All Odds. Before I introduce my next guest, I do have to say there's a trigger warning on this one. It involves abuse, drugs, and self harm, but I urge everybody to listen to it because this is an amazing story with a very happy ending. So I'm absolutely honoured and excited to welcome George Charlton to Against All Odds. How are you, my lovely?
I'm all right, man. As I've just been saying, I'm on the way back from a bit of man flu. I think I've had a bit of man flu or a virus for the last couple of weeks. I think in my house, if you want sympathy, it's in the dictionary in between shit and syphilis. So, hi, man. I'm all right, man. I'm all right. I'm alive. I'm happy, and I'm on your podcast, so it's fucking
Uh,
mint.
oh, bless you. Do you know what? Every time I see your social media posts, I just smile. And I'm so proud of you. And by the end of this podcast, everybody's going to realise why I'm proud of you. Because when I set this podcast up against all odds, it literally is against all odds. And you just scream against all odds. So I had to get you on here. So thank you for
Oh no, it's
joining.
cool, man. It's cool, and you know what it is, Amy. Like I appreciate your kindness and your words, but like for me, it kind of feels important to say like kind of the stuff that I'm doing now is expected of me. Do you know what I mean? I've been on a bit of a journey, which obviously we're going to talk about. But I think for me, like the attention needs to be like not so much on guys like me who've kind of got the shit together and doing really well. It needs to be kind of focused on those people who are like day one, kind of coming into drug and alcohol treatment and support services, are coming forward and saying like, I've got a problem. Like they're more inspirational than anything that I do. Do you know what I mean? So I'm conscious, like I'm a bit of a character. I'm all over the socials doing my thing. I'm kind of like, I'm happy go lucky and stuff, but I definitely don't want that to take that away from kind of like the awesome people across the UK who are like got day one today where they're kind of tackling and addressing their issues.
Yeah. So I wanted to start with a question. What's wrong with our society and our government when it comes to our views on drugs?
Well, they're not grounded in truth, I think is the first thing to say. I mean, we have something called the Misuse of Drugs Act, which has been around since 1971. The Misuse of Drugs Act is supposed to kind of inform the way in which we deal with people who use all different kinds of drugs. And I think arguably the Misuse of Drugs Act's not fit for purpose. It's not grounded in evidence, and it probably does more harm than the drugs do themselves. So I think for me, it's important to say that um, in the current climate, the safest way to do drugs is not to do them, but people
Mhm.
will. But then what we do is, as a result of the Misuse of Drugs Act, people who maybe do use substances are very reluctant to come forward and be open about their drug use because they're worried about being like vilified or demonized or stigmatized, or they're going to get like, are they going to get criminalized for their drug use, which many people do. We criminalize people for taking drugs which are less harmful than alcohol. So like if you look at kind of there's a really a great guy called Professor David Nutt from King's College in London, and David's definitely worth a watch on YouTube. Like he's fucking brilliant actually. So like David used to be the government's advisor for the Advisory Council on the Misuse of Drugs. And the Advisory Council on the Misuse of Drugs are an independent body which is supposed to kind of support the government in making kind of decisions and kind of legislation around drugs and drug harms, right? So
Right.
David Nutt and colleagues within the Advisory Council on the Misuse of Drugs, he did something looking at the comparative harms of drugs and kind of trying to weight and scale the harms of individual drugs based on the individual and society as a whole. And kind of right up there at the top was alcohol. Do you know what I
Yeah, yeah,
mean? So
yeah.
like ahead of heroin, ahead of crack, ahead of LSD, ahead of MDMA, ahead of cannabis, right? Right the way up there was alcohol. So alcohol kills more people every year than all illegal drugs combined. However, for us, we've been conditioned to believe that like alcohol's this kind of life-giving social fucking lubricant, where in
Yeah.
reality there's like 9,500 people die every year of alcohol specific deaths. And they're deaths which are attributed to kind of like what you would call problematic alcohol use. I hate the term problematic alcohol use, but you know what I mean? People who are kind of using it in a way in which is problematic. But then you've got then you've got the much wider harms which come from alcohol, which are attributed to kind of long-term health harms, liver failure, kind of like cutting the years off your life. But bizarrely, the government kind of seems to be really supportive of the fact that alcohol is a lethal, dangerous toxin that you can buy in a supermarket that we know kills you, we know gives you cancer, but they'll still be supportive of that with a government health warning around it. What they don't do for less harmful illegal drugs, such as cannabis, is say, well, yes, you can also buy this. Be mindful that it can cause some harms. These are the health measures which you can take, and then put the choice and the decision in the hands of people who might want to use cannabis. So I guess for me, like, I'm pro drugs. I'm pro people's ability to choose and use them. And I think that we should extend the same courtesy to people who use drugs as we do to people who drink alcohol. Because I think kind of that way we're going to have more people who come forward and can ask for help and support. Interestingly, that guy, David Nutt, he got sacked from his job at the Advisory Council on Misuse of Drugs because he said that horse riding was more dangerous than taking ecstasy. MDMA, and the then Home Secretary phoned him up and said, "You can't say that, David. You need to retract that statement," because he put it out there, man. And he said, "Well, I'm not going to retract it because it's true. Riding a horse is more dangerous. More people get harmed from horse riding than they do from taking MDMA. So why aren't we banning and criminalizing people for horse riding? Why aren't we banning and criminalizing people for climbing Mount Everest? Because more people die climbing that mountain every year than they do from taking LSD and cannabis combined. Do you know what I mean? So the whole Misuse of Drugs Act's a complete mess. And I think that it kind of really isolates people who use drugs in terms of getting information, advice, and guidance. Long answer. The answer.
No, I like long answers. 1971, like bloody hell, we've moved on since then. Everything has moved on. Why is that not moved on?
I don't know, man. I think for me, people who use drugs are an easy target. Like, you know, the Misuse of Drugs Act is probably one of the only policies or acts in the whole of Parliament that hasn't ever been reviewed. It's never been reviewed since 1971. So it's unjust. How can we be, you know, when I was 15, right? When I was 15, I was first criminalized for possession of drugs for cannabis. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, cannabis kills nobody. Nobody at all died from smoking cannabis last year. Do you know what I mean? But yet I ended up with a conviction that kind of really impacted on me early on and it taught me lots of lessons, actually. Like, what I learned early on around cannabis and drugs was like, when you get them, you use them quick. Because if you use them quick and you haven't got them on your person, but rather that in your person, do you know what I mean? Then the old bill aren't likely to be able to collar you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it kind of really teaches us to be pretty irresponsible around kind of, well, or not irresponsible, that's the wrong word. Like that we need to be quite reactive to kind of like when we score, we need to use really, 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 really quickly. And I don't know, man. It's just weird that we're seen as a cohort of people who we can treat like shit, because I think the vast majority of people who use drugs are definitely in the field that I work in, because I think again there's a real difference between drug use and drug dependence, and people who use drugs typically depending on the type of drugs they use. So those people who like to have a little sniff of cocaine, like Michael Gove. I shouldn't have even went there, but I did. Like people like certain ministers who use cocaine, or they'll use a bit of MDMA, who can hold down a steady job, maybe go out on a weekend and have a few glasses of wine, have a few lines, have a few E's, dance the night away. The police aren't concerned with those guys in many respects. They don't go after those. But if you're a fucking poor heroin user who's destitute and begging on the streets, then they're going to come after you for a £10 bag of fucking heroin and make your life like shit. And it's already, do you know what I mean? And I just think it's weird, man. It's really, really weird. So I'm definitely a champion for the underdog. And anyone who's disenfranchised in any way, not just through addictions, man, anyone who's doing things tough in life, then I've got their back. Do you know what I mean? 100%.
Yeah. And I think there's a problem with society as well. People judge very quickly. and you spoke about that on in Newcastle.
Yeah.
Is I mean, that's like a generation thing, it's passed on, isn't it?
Yeah, man.
What I mean, and we're very quick as a nation to pull people down
Yeah, yeah.
instead of going, and the media, it's all over the media.
And typically those people who are pulling drug users down are doing it when they've got a pint of beer or a glass of fucking wine in their hand. And you kind of go, mate, you're a drug user yourself. We've been led to kind of believe that I've got to be doing a disturb on that alcohol's cool and other drugs aren't. Do you know what I mean? But you know what, man, it really is bad, man. Like when you look at the way in which like the press and the media do cover like stories about drugs, like there's obviously we talk about organized crime gangs and the police have got a thankless job trying to kind of stop drugs coming into the UK or wherever, right? People want to take drugs, man. We're not taking drugs because they're not nice. We're taking them because they're
Mm.
fucking nice. But we never hear about that, right? But then what we end up doing is we end up really vilifying a section of the community of people who are like really broken through their drug use. So like obviously in Newcastle, we see in those slides like zombies on our streets and kids grieve for junkie after dad. What's the point in just locking up these junkies? Do you know what I mean? Mum jailed for tying up a junkie daughter. And I put my head in my hands. I think, what the fuck, man?
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
on here with those headlines where we're allowed to write that and nobody goes, hang on, is that not hate speech? Do you know, because
Yeah.
it feels to me like it's hate speech and it's mad,
And
man.
that's it. And how many people like read newspapers and turn the news on? It's like people are addicted. So it's like they're
Yeah, yeah,
being brainwashed
yeah.
and purely making judgments on what they've read.
Red and
You know, they
totally.
Yeah,
And
and they probably don't know anybody that's been through that. But instantly when they see somebody like lying on the floor in town
yeah,
that's, probably homeless, they're automatically going to make a judgment.
yeah, yeah, and walk and take a wide berth round that person and probably not interact. Or if you are going to interact, you're going to probably say something kind of negative and scummy about them. Do you know what I mean? But the reality is like there's 5 million family members across the UK who are directly impacted by a loved one's alcohol or drug use. So I think there's more people than we think who know somebody who's got an issue around alcohol or other drugs. But the problem is it's all wrapped up in shame. So we kind of like we keep it to ourselves. We don't ask for help and support. We're worried about getting judged. Like excuse me. I work with a lot of family members across the UK, and they don't come like they don't go right. My son's got a problem with alcohol or other drugs, for instance, and we know that he's got a problem, so I'm going to come and help for some help and support that day. It's 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, sometimes longer before a family member will come forward and go, we're out of depth here and we don't know what to do. And you say, well, why haven't you came forward sooner? And they go, just because like we were worried, man. We were worried about what our neighbors are going to say. We were worried about like what people are going to think about us. Was it our fault? We're worried that people are going to judge him. And and when you get into kind of focusing on the people that are supporting, those people who are really kind of disenfranchised because of like not just their drug use, man. Like there's so many other things going on in their lives before they ever got to using drugs. If you care enough to say like, tell me your story, man. Like what's happened where you've ended up sat outside of fucking Greg's trying to get some money together so you can get a drug because you can't bear to be present in your own life. Like, what's happened to you to get you there? When they tell you that story, man, like, yeah, your
Yeah.
heart will change, man. Your heart will change because it's not like these people are using those drugs for fun. Do you know what I mean? A lot of
Mm.
those people are using those drugs because they're entrenched in in pain and adverse childhood experiences, and they haven't done it tough for a week or a month. They've done it tough for fucking decades, man. So like, and people go, oh well, like they choose that. Well, no, the fucking don't,
No.
man. 'Cause
Yeah.
nobody would choose that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody at all. And I guess for me, it's just like I feel like absolutely like obligated and to show humanity to this group of people, man, to say it doesn't like I've got your fucking back. And there's many people like me, Amy, you're the fucking same, and other people who are at the Morty gig. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's been really nice actually to see the number of people who've like dropped a few DMs or whatever else to just say like that one input really changed the way that they thought and felt about people who use drugs. Because with respect, nobody likes a fucking drug user until it becomes your drug user, until it
yeah,
becomes your
yeah,
husband who's got an addiction issue, your mum, your dad, your husband, your wife, somebody in your family who ends up entrenched in addiction. Then all of a sudden you go from being the drug user hater to going, oh, can we have help, please? Well,
yeah,
yes, of
yeah,
course we can, but addiction can happen to anyone, man.
yeah.
Anyone.
You said something in Newcastle. It's what did you say? That's someone's someone, and just to have that bit of compassion, because it could so easily happen to people and a family member, and I think that's the thing. And you're so right, like you people will judge straight away until it happens to them,
Yeah.
and it's just insane. I know you spoke a bit about prisons because I know you do quite a lot of work in prisons. So what is wrong with the prison system? Because I know a few people that have been sent down for things that possibly didn't really need to be sent down for,
Yeah,
and
man.
came out with a drug problem.
Yeah, yeah. I think possibly around a third of all people who are in the prison system across the UK are there for non-violent drug-related offences. So they haven't been part of an organised crime gang. They
Mm.
haven't like smashed somebody's head in when they've been under the influence of drugs. They've literally just been caught with drugs which are less harmful than alcohol. Then they've been sent in to do a year-long sentence or a 2-year sentence, whatever it is. And there's very little by way of reform that happens within prisons, in spite of all of the good work that goes on in the prisons. Like you, it, I've got a mate who went into prison without a heroin problem and came out with one. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah. It's just insane.
Yeah, yeah, man. And yeah, and also it's like it's fucking like what do we think we're going to achieve by putting people in cages? Like, like in terms of like, there's no compelling evidence anyway to suggest that you're going to bring about more positive behavior change with punishment than you are with reward, right?
Yes,
There's
yeah.
no evidence to suggest that kind of criminalizing people and locking them up does anything to deter them from their drug use. It doesn't work. There's a guy in the Philippines called Rodrigo Duterte, and he's the president of the Philippines. And until very recently, he was going on national TV, and he was basically saying that if you know of anyone who's supplying drugs to anyone else, then if you phone this number flashes at the bottom. Rodrigo's on the fucking thing, right? Shit, this right. He's going, if you know anyone who's selling drugs, right? Phone this number, and we're going to send a death squad out, right? And we're going to fucking murder them. Right. So
No.
this is me paraphrasing, right? This is me paraphrasing. Steve Rodrigo's not doing it in a Geordie accent, right? But he's not being ambiguous about what it is that he's doing. He's saying, if you know somebody in your community who's selling drugs, then phone this number and we will take care of them. Right. So then what happens is people phone up and a death squad to send people to go out and they murder them. Boom. They shoot them fucking dead. Right. So had drug use in the Philippines gone down or up even when you had the threat of murder? What do you
I
think?
bet it's not gone down. I bet it's
Went
not gone
down.
down, has it?
Went up. Went up. So, like, even if the fucking threat of being murdered
Mm.
is nothing to stop people from using drugs, what chance do we have of locking people in cages within our criminal justice system in terms of reforming them? It doesn't work. And it's like, it's almost as if, right? It's perverse, man. I think it's really perverse that we have this one kind of way that we feel that we should deal with addiction, and that's to make their lives more difficult. Do you know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
let's kind of lock them in cages, um, keep them in there, not really educate them too much, and then kind of like release them to nothing with a criminal record, which means that probably they need to explain where they've been for so they turn up for a new job. Where have you? Well, so can I see your CV? Where have you been for the last 2 years? Well, I've been
Yeah.
in, you've been in jail for drugs. You're not getting a job. Do you know what I mean? You're not getting a job anyway. And you think about it, I think it costs around between 55 and 65,000 pound a year to put one person in prison for a year, right? So that's the cost to house somebody. So surely would it not be better to go like Well, what we're going to do with that 55 or 65,000 pound is we're going to employ somebody, right, on a full-time basis. Why don't we employ like another drug user, right? Somebody who's in recovery, for instance, right? Or kind of. So what we're going to do is we're going to employ a drug user who's in recovery or somebody who's doing really well, and for 25,000 pound a year. And what their job's going to be is to manage you and four other people. So like this. So now all of a sudden you've got somebody who's had an addiction problem who can now get a job, and his job or her job is going to be to mentor and coach somebody who hasn't gone to prison, but instead you're going to work with them for a year. Then out of the other £25,000, we're going to say, right, we'll get you £1,000 a month and pay your fucking rent and get you a nice little flat and do all of that. Then we've got another £10,000, which what we're going to do is like, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? Do you want to go to college? How can we, like, surely that money, 65 grand, can be better used than putting some poor fucker in a cage where in the prison system at the minute it's just a nightmare. People behind locked doors, like criminalizing them. They've got no hope when they come out. One in every 200 people that leaves the criminal justice system will die within the first 2 weeks of coming out of prison from a drugs overdose. Like, you're gonna be stigmatized and vilified and demonized. You're never going to be able to get a fucking another job. And it's just like, I go, where's the sense in all of this? Rather than kind of trying to be really solution focused about how best to use that money. You know, me and Morty went into HMP Featherstone, and
Yeah.
there was like all these lads come in, man. There was about 70 or 80 of them, and all came in with a big jail face on and a carpets under their arms, and like they probably had their game face on. Do you know what I mean? They came in with me and Paul and that, and you could see them being all laddish. And then kind of like me and Paul were kind of just doing my thing and stuff. And when I started talking about kind of like childhood sexual abuse and kind of experiences that I had at school and stuff like that, you could see the masks dropping, man. You could see them
Yeah.
going, "What the fuck is this now? What's happening here?" Because you got this tattooed, potty mouthed Geordie fuckwit who's talking about had addiction problems for 15 years, but now he's talking about kind of some of the reasons why he ended up the way that he did. And that mask dropped, man. And you know what? It was like, I've got goosebumps now just thinking about like that couple of hours that we spent together in that room was fucking beautiful, man, where all of those lads started opening up about their experiences. And, you know, at the end of the gig, man, like, they all obviously all had to be escorted back to their cells and stuff, but they made a queue, man. They queued up every one of them lads to come and like get a cuddle off Paul, and he was fucking amazing. Do you know what I mean? And then to come and get a cuddle off me, and people were whispering in my ear, man. They were saying, "That happened to me. That
Yeah.
happened to me." Like
And
that.
that's the thing, is it? You resonate with so many people. And I'm going to move on to that, because when you started talking about what I'm going to ask you about, you had 200 people in one room in tears in Newcastle. Because I often say to people, when they are impacting other people in a way that we do, there's always a massive reason why. And I'd followed your social media for a while, my lovely, and I never knew the reason why until we ended up in that room in Newcastle when you literally set everybody off crying. So, George, tell me where it all started for you, mate. And I might
Yeah,
start crying again in a minute.
man. It's cool. Like, you know, I think the first thing to say is that like drugs weren't responsible for where I ended up. The way that I used them was, and I think we need to be
Yeah.
kind of really cautious about like implying that like everyone who uses drugs is a bad person. They're not nice people to take drugs t-shirt away. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? There's lots of people who used the same drugs as I did who never ended up where I did. Do you know what I
Yeah. Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So like because the reasons as to why we were doing what we were doing were different. Like for me, like I always remember, like I've got this picture of like little me sitting on a
Yes,
second hand,
ours one.
a second hand grifter, little boy, 8 year old, kind of in a house with lots of love with me mum and me dad, and there was a lot of love in my house. But I always remember like not feeling okay. I didn't feel I didn't feel confident. I didn't feel safe. I felt there was something wrong. I used to look at the way that other kids used to play and interact with each other. I used to see them out in the street doing that.
Mm.
I didn't feel the way that they looked. And like to try and
How
get
old was
involved,
you then?
8 year old, maybe 7 or 8 year
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like they just looked so natural and so comfortable and kicking balls about and stuff like that. And I always felt like the outsider looking in, do you know what I mean? And like back then in the late 70s and that, like teachers were hitting me with bamboo canes across my legs and me arms and hit you with meter long rulers, like as just a little kid for doing nothing. Like it
Mm,
wasn't like doing anything bad that warranted nothing warrants that for a kid, you know what I mean? And
no.
I became really frightened of I got frightened of going to school. When I was home, I was dreading going to school in case the teachers would hit me. Like I wasn't very good academically, and I was worried about that I was going to just fail, and was that going to result in me getting hit? And I ended up really young, like self-harming, like I used to scratch myself, scratch and
Mm,
scratch, scratch and scratch and scratch and scratch until I started bleeding, and then go and tell my mum that I was bleeding, and she wouldn't send me to school. Do you know what I mean? Because she was frantic and worried about me. But like you can only do that for so long. I used to make myself vomit in front of them as well, so I didn't have to go to school
mm,
and uh, and doctors then weren't tuned into young people's mental health.
no.
And my doctor, when my mum talked and said, he said, look, he's fit now. He just phase, send him back. And obviously you can't tell your mum you're not going to school, and or
Yeah.
maybe some kids do, but I didn't. And back to school I went, and back to getting hit I got as well. And she was worried and about me, and she was a lovely lady, my mum, and she had a big faith, man. She wasn't so much of a church goer, but she certainly had a faith in religion,
Yeah.
and and went and spoke to a local priest who said, bring him to see me, and I'll see if I can help him and give him some counseling support, if you like. So I ended up seeing a priest probably at the age of 8 year old, 9 year old, and what I got when I was with him was a bit more than spiritual counsel, you know.
Mm,
Um, like that man, he didn't sexually abuse me, but he raped me,
yeah.
and he used to, um, he used to like to touch my cock,
Mm.
and he used to like me touch
At
his.
8 years old, I mean, I don't even know how you'd begin to understand that,
You
mate.
don't, you don't really, you think it's normal, you know, like you think it's caring. Like I'm not really sure what you were supposed to get when you went and seen that man. Like I didn't know
Yeah.
if that was normal or not. Do you know what I mean? And that kind of progressed on to like to touching and to then like me being like fucking anally raped by him, and like and that happening for a long time. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. How long was you there for? From 8 to.
years, possibly seeing him on and off for a couple of years, and never telling me mum and dad what was happening. Do you know what I mean? Because he told me if I ever told anyone what he was doing to me, nobody
Yeah.
would believe me, and I believed him. Do you know what I mean? And it was weird, man. Like there was a time I almost thought that I wanted to join the church. It was fucking bizarre, man. I was definitely groomed, man. I was definitely groomed, and it was like fucking. It was a really painful time. So like, so at this point now, I'm being physically abused in schools, being fucking braid by adults with rulers and bamboo canes, and being sexually abused by this guy. I'm being told that I'm never going to amount to anything or being anything, or I'm a thick because I couldn't do the maths, and then and then senior school was just senior school was fucking it was just as bad. Like it was like they used to like beat the shit out of you, I'm telling you now, like with leather straps, like and smacking them across your hands as hard as they could hit you. Like men, right? Grown men, like taking a run up and fucking brain you with it, man. And it was like for some of the kids in my school, lads in my school, it was like a badge of honor to get strapped, but it fucking was no badge of honor. For me, it scared the life
I
out of me.
bet your view of adults must have been,
I was scared, Amy.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
and I
mean,
guess
yeah, awful, mate.
horrible.
Absolutely awful.
And
Yeah.
and 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 I became a real I became a real loner, you know. Like I became fucking really guarded and fucking frightened of of everyone. You know, there was lots of kids that I was at school with who like they're really decent lads and lasses and stuff like that. But I didn't have the confidence to move towards. I was like I was fucking like I was just frightened all of the fucking time. All of the time. Like, you know, I was like I got involved in like stealing when I was early on to try and kind of buy things for people to try and make them fucking like me and stuff. And then people were finding out that I was stealing, and then they would come around and start blackmailing me. And I was having to take stuff out of my parents' house to give to older lads who were coming to the door. Well, in fact, they were young adults actually coming to the door. And I just think from like the age of maybe fucking, I don't know, 7 all the way through to like forever until
Yeah.
forever. It's just fucking. I was just terrified. I, I always believed that, like, if I was an adult, if I would just leave school and become an adult, then everything would be kind of okay. That was the measure. I wasn't very good at much, I felt. And then I joined the army cadets, and I absolutely excelled in doing that. You know what I mean? It was like
Hmm.
putting a uniform on. It was like almost becoming somebody different in some ways. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Got
And
a
then
different identity.
yeah, man, I used to fucking think I was Rambo or something. 'Cause you know what I mean? But you know what it was like? It was like I took a real pride in my uniform and making creases nice and shining my boots nice. And what started to happen when I was doing all of that was you had adults who were saying your boots are really nice, George. Do you know what I mean? Private Charlton, yeah, like your uniform's really fantastic. I got a Lance Corporal stripe and then a Corporal stripe, and I started to become somebody. Do you know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah,
fucking hell,
yeah.
there's something here that I might be like I might be good at, you know. And I loved it, man. I was really mad for the military and thought like that would be something that I would definitely do. But then I was like other young people, you know, dabbling with a bit of alcohol and stuff and drinking like old English cider at Westmoreland Court Flat. It's out my head. And but what I recognized early on for me was that definitely different substances could do something for me that I couldn't do for myself. So like I went from being like the most like fucking introvert, like shit scared person, couldn't really talk to anyone, a blumber like a stumbling mess in everything that I said, to having a bottle of Old English, and then people not laughing at us because I was a dick, but laughing at us because I was quite funny. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
yeah,
it was
yeah.
like positive regard here. And the first time I ever used cannabis, like again around the age of 15-year-old, like cannabis sedated me, it slowed me down. I didn't have such a frenetic head. So what I realized was like I could different substances could regulate like how I was on a given day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
amphetamines, for instance, there was never any of these times when I was taking drugs that were forced on me or anything like that. But they definitely had more positive impacts on me than negatives. And like amphetamines for me, speed, it became a game changer. Like at the age of 16, like I went to buy some cannabis. The guy didn't have any cannabis, but he said, I've got some whiz. I said, I don't even know what the fuck that is, but a little bomb of whiz in a cigarette paper, and I took that, and then half an hour later, I fucking arrived, man. I'm telling you now, I'd arrived right, my shoulders, I stood taller, my patter was fucking amazing, I was super confident, I could talk to the fucking girls, I started getting a little kiss and a cuddle here and there, like I started being around other people and feeling really comfortable, do you know what I mean? So like how can drugs be the problem? They're not. Like if it makes me feel like this, like esteemable and that I've got a place in the world, then they can't be the problem. Because when I wasn't using, I was back to feeling worthless and meaningless and really reserved and fucking frightened all of the time. Do you know what I mean? So I suppose at an unconscious level, like drugs were doing for me what I couldn't do for me I couldn't do for myself. But like, amphetamines became like an everyday kind of thing for me. I was taking them a canny bait, and then I had a moment of clarity. I thought, you know what, I need to go and join the fucking army. I need to do something to get away from the drugs. Not that I had a huge problem because I didn't, right? But I just like I had this moment where I thought, go and follow your dreams and go and join the military. So I went to the Army Careers Office to become a. I wanted to become either a pilot in the Army Air Corps or I wanted to play. I wanted to play the bugle and drums with the Royal Marine Commandos. And bear in mind, I've got no GCSEs. I didn't fucking get a qualification from school. And I went and seen the army and they said, what do you want to be? And I said, I want to be a pilot. And they said, you can be a fucking blanket stacker in the Royal Army Order. You can be a storeman. I'll take that. And I ended up going to join the army when I was about 19 years old to get away from the drugs, but fucking stupidly took 9 ounces of hash with us, 9 ounces of cannabis in my bag, and after about 3 weeks of being in basic training, I got caught with it. I went and smoked
Right,
one
right.
joint, and by the time I'd got back to my unit, they'd been found. I was stoned. I was marched to the guardhouse. I was locked up in the guardhouse, put in front of the commanding officer, and he said that he could send me to prison for a year. I'm like going, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean? Like, what?
Mm,
What's he talking about? Like, but he wasn't happy and he wanted to get extended powers and got extended powers, and I got sent to Colchester prison for 3 years and ended up getting doing two, and then chucked out and came back to the northeast of England with like my only dream fucking shattered. Do you know what I mean? And I think then for me, that's when my drug use changed a lot. Do you know what I mean? I
right.
think
Yeah,
I, I was on a path of fucking self-destruction. I felt a lot of shame. Like I, I didn't know, like I didn't know that I was going to be anything with my life, and my drug use went from kind of being more recreational and having fun times to kind of using a lot on my own, drinking every day. I used to like I was a dependent drinker, so if I didn't have alcohol, I started having fits. I
yeah,
used to be drinking Lambrini at fucking 8 o'clock in the morning to stop me withdrawals. And the only reason I used to drink Lambrini rather than cans was like I would always vomit whenever I had that drink in the morning. So like if you vomit and you've had a can of lager, when you vomit up froth. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's not liquid anymore, so you can't drink it again. Whereas if you drink Lambrini and you vomit in a bucket, then you can drink that again. Do you know what I mean? Because it doesn't turn to froth. Because that's where I was. I was desperate, man. I was like my using was really irresponsible, taking like opiate-based medication, taking alcohol, poly drug use all in one go, and I lost my mind, man. I was cutting myself open with razor blades. I was like I was having like conscious blackouts, so I was just like I was doing things I didn't know what I was fucking doing. Waking up in
mm,
police cells, like with blood on my hands, praying to God it was fucking mine, like just and then ended up on this downhill spiral and not able to see a way out. Owing people thousands of pounds, being attacked, having bottles stuck in my face, and it was just it was a horrible place, man. It was a horrible place and a horrible time, and I
yeah,
just see couldn't see a way out. You know what I mean? Horrible.
yeah. And it's that thing, isn't it? There's always, if somebody's like that, there it's because they're trying to get away from reality.
Yeah,
And at
man.
that time, even though it's probably not the best option to do, it's a quick option.
Yeah, man.
And it does the job there and then.
Yeah, man. And I think for me, I think people use drugs or alcohol for one or two reasons. One's to feel good and the other's to stop feeling bad. And both are fine. It's for
Yeah,
me, certainly for me, at that time, I was using substances to stop myself feeling bad, man. It was just like, it was just bleak. Couldn't see a way out. My parents, like they were doing everything they could to help me, but I was just a fucking broken mess in and out the criminal justice system, getting done for theft, all kinds of stuff. And I just ended up like I was lost, man. I was spinning out of control like for well over a decade, man. And like when you start getting the way that I was, you start becoming known to kind of like mental health teams and everything else. Do you know what I mean? Because my behavior was literally, I was out my fucking mind, man. I was out my mind, and like I was those episodes of self-harm got kind of really violent towards me. I was never outwardly violent to other people, but like razor blades written all over my chest where it slashed me cell open and slashed me legs, and you end up detained under the Mental Health Act. You know what I mean? They take your liberty away from you, and I was put in safe surroundings. It might sound bizarre, like, but I used to fucking love being in the mental health section, me, because you got lots of nice sandwiches and you could do some jigsaws, and you were in a safe and secure place, and
Yeah.
treat me with medication that would absolutely like drugs like Theorazine and Lagactyl to stop you from thinking, man. They just fucking you just exist. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
And, and while I was in those places and spaces like that, I felt kind of like relatively well. I didn't feel anything to be fair, but I was safe. Um, but then you always ended up
Coming
back
out
out,
and
and
then
then
having to deal with it again.
again, and then all of the disappointment that kind of that goes with that. You know what I mean? Like I was never a bad fucking person, me, man. I was just in a mess and couldn't see a way out. And the way that the the option that I've seen as the way out was to just to take my own life. You know, I've had a number of overdoses over the years, me, a lot of them which were down to um not being harm reduction minded in terms of the drugs that I was taking. So kind of not really thinking about like dose and different drugs and the way they interact with each other. I was just really irresponsible, took the drugs and ended up fucking overdosing, you know. But there was a couple of occasions where like my intent was to take my own life, and one of the last times that that happened was my mum and dad were my dad says to us, George, I'm going to help you, son. I promise I'm going to help you. I'm going to take your mum down to Uncle Jimmy's in Chesterfield, and I'm going to come back home, son, and we're going to work it out. I'm going to help you. He was a lovely man, man. They both fucking were amazing. And he said, I'm going to take her down in a week's time and we'll help you. So during that week, I'd started stealing warfarin. It doesn't know to give you a buzz, it thins your blood. My mum had had a lot of strokes and stuff like that. So I started stealing a warfarin. I started stealing dihydrocodeine, which is a strong opiate-based medication. And my plan was when they left, I would take a load of this warfarin, take a load of dihydrocodeine so I could kind of I could overdose and I would slash my wrists. And by the time he got back, um I would bleed, I would be dead, and then that would be the fucking problem done. And then I was really calculated. So my mum used to have a wet room, because she couldn't lift her leg to get into the bath. So I thought, well, I'll do it in the wet room because that way when I bleed out, I'll bleed out on the floor and he won't go mad because there won't be any blood on the carpet. You know, the fact that his fucking son would be dead on the fucking floor, but that, like, do you know what I mean? So I was conscientious around killing myself. And he left, and I did what I said I would do. And after about an hour, it was like he didn't have a mobile phone and out then. And they're driving down to Uncle Jimmy's, and my dad just out of nowhere, he said to me, "Mum, something doesn't feel right, Rita." Like he hadn't stopped the phone home or anything. He just said something's not right, and they turned the car around and came back and came into the house and found me fucking unconscious and bleeding all over the floor, and phoned an ambulance, and I woke up detained under the Mental Health Act again, like fucking wounded, man, wounded because I knew it was going to fucking start all over again. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like, fortunately, I ended up going straight from there into a residential rehabilitation centre in Sunderland, and stayed there for a year, and wasn't drinking, wasn't using, was a complete fucking mess. Which makes you fucking think like if you just stop drinking, you just stop using, everything's going to be okay. Stop drinking, stop using, nothing was okay. Because like alcohol and drugs weren't the problem. They were a symptom of being
Yeah, yeah.
violently abused when I was a fucking kid. Do
Mm.
you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah,
was the problem. It was all of the adverse childhood experiences and trauma that was my problem, not the drugs. Do you know what I mean? The
yeah.
drugs were a symptom of that. So I ended up having to go on kind of just like a mission of fucking like rebuilding a fucking whole new life, man. Like lots of my pals, man. like I was 30 or something when I went into rehab. People were married, they bought homes, they had fucking businesses, I had shit, I had fucking out. And arguably people might go, that was your own doing, all right, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Whatever. But 30-year-old in a
Yeah,
rehab, like fucking terrified, thinking,
yeah. Trying to find your feet.
well, trying, I like fucking,
Yeah, yeah.
I like, what do I do? I've got no qualifications. I've got nothing. I felt like I had fucking nothing. I wasn't entrepreneurial, like now like that. It was just like I was just fucking basically like 9 months in, and them saying to me, "You do know you're leaving in like 12 weeks."
Yeah, so
Like,
there's the fear again because you're just
yeah.
like, oh shit.
Have you got you like, leave me here forever? Like, have you considered what you're going to do? What you're going to do with the rest of your
No.
life? No, definitely not. So it was just crazy, man. So I ended up thinking, right, what do I want to do then? So I thought, well, I need to do some form of education, but education scared the shit out of me because I had such a negative experience. But I ended up
Yeah.
doing a basic counselling course, and not because I wanted to be a counsellor, but because I wanted to learn how to be around people without feeling shit scared. Because I felt really like just shit scared being around people. So I thought, well, maybe these people who are doing counselling qualifications, they might go easier on somebody like me. So enrolled in a counselling course. It was a 12-week long course. I think everybody probably passes it. And and like at the end of the course, we all got kind of shouted up to the front one at a time, and I got given a certificate, and it to say this is to certify George Charlton's passed a basic counselling course, and it blew me fucking mind. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, like my fucking God, like it was probably the first thing in my life I'd ever started and finished. But then the feeling that I got in that moment when they gave me that certificate was like fucking powerful. It felt like
Yeah.
that feels really good. And then me mental mind went, felt a bit like snorting a line of cocaine that. So maybe it's the only thing to do is to do the next course. So then I ended up
Yeah.
doing a level two, and then I did a level three postgraduate diploma degree, went on and did a master's at Durham, and it was just fucking. And I guess for me, that was kind of like the kickstart for my life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like really,
What
that
are you
maybe,
doing now?
yeah, that I'm.
Thank God. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank God that you went through like the rehab and the qualification and then recognizing that you are capable
yeah, man. And
of
thank God I
doing.
went not just that, Amy. Thank God I went through all of it. Like that's where
Yeah.
I am right now. It's like every single part of my life's brought me to kind of right here, right now. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's when I was in that shit, it was horrendous. What happened was completely fucking wrong on so many levels. Do you know what I mean? Like we often talk about like kind of things happening like for me, not to me. Do
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
Certainly for
it's
a
one
long
hell of a shift, isn't it? And it's like, yeah, and that's why I'm so proud of you because you are
time.
saving lives now daily. Tell people about, is it, how do you pronounce it, naloxone? In the background, I can see the Save a Life. How the hell did you
Absolutely.
start getting into that? Because this is why I smile at you because it's one of those things where I can, like, he's been through this, but look at what he's doing now. Like, that's incredible. So where did that start?
Well, do you know what it is? You know, like I kind of came through all that educational stuff. I started to kind of did a little bit of volunteering in organizations, then started to kind of work for other people, different organizations all the time, feeling more and more confident about like kind of who I was. And I think something I realized like early on was like I had to make a decision, right? I made a conscious decision like about what I was going to do with all of those experiences. So like was I going to pretend that they hadn't happened? Not tell anybody about them, and then just move on and just
Mhm.
get on. You know what I mean? Or was I going to be fucking out and proud about those experiences of being a drug user, going through childhood sexual abuse, all of that pain and trauma shit? Was I going to use that as a tool to try and help other people to feel okay and open about like if he can talk about that shit, I can talk about that shit. So I thought, fuck it, I'm just gonna fucking nail me flag to the mast and just be completely out there. So like for a decade, I just worked with lots of different organizations for them. I'd never kind of seen myself as working for myself, but then I started setting up a couple of little social enterprises, and then kind of realizing like I've got more fucking patter than a fortnight's rain, haven't I? Do you know what I mean? So I'm a good talker. Kind of like, I was then talking myself into bits and pieces of work, and they would say, "Oh, we would love to work with you. Like, there's 50 grand," and I'd be going, like, not excitement, right? Like, because this is how I used to be. I was always like, shit. Like, I talked myself into something, then somebody's give us all of that money, then I'd be straight into that, like, self-flagellation, beating myself. You're not good enough. You're gonna get found out. You're a fucking
Yeah, yeah,
fraud. You're fake. Do you know what I mean? All of that.
yeah, yeah.
But I took this. So, like, when my dad was alive, my dad always used to say, George, George, look at all of those qualifications you've got. Look at all those things people say about you. He used to say, son, all these people can't be wrong about you. Have you considered maybe you're wrong about you? Do you know what I mean? And he was my biggest fan, man, and I was his biggest fan as well. Like, and I've just kind of at the place where I think, fuck it, you know what it is? I'm going to do everything I can in my power to make a difference to the lives of other people and make sure that if people come into contact with me, they go away feeling better than they did when they came. But like,
Yeah.
so I've kind of done work around addictions in one form or another, probably for the last 20 years. I know it's hard to believe with my youthful good looks. However, um, around about 3.5, 4 years ago, people started talking about naloxone, this thing here, right? And I was really like, I knew a bit about it, but I didn't carry it. I thought, fucking hell, man. Like, I work with people who use drugs all day, every day, and I don't end up carrying this. And whilst it's a prescription only medicine, anyone who's likely to witness an overdose can get access to naloxone, carry it, and use it to save somebody's life, right? That's what the government says. You don't have to pay, and it's really easy to get. So it
Right.
was just like a moment of madness where I thought, fucking hell, why don't I carry it? So I phoned the drug treatment provider where I live and I said, could I get trained to carry naloxone? And they said, well, sorry, we don't do it. And I said, I'm sure that you do. But they kind of went, no, no, we don't. And I said, okay, can I leave me number? Would you find out? Because I was certain that the vast majority of drug treatment services nationally, they carry it and will train people to use it. So I left me number. They said they would phone us back and then they didn't, right? So I kind of,
Right.
a few days, I phoned them back again, spoke to somebody else who also said they didn't do it. And I left me number. They said they would phone us back and then they didn't, right? And I thought, ooh, so this drug here is going to reverse drug-related deaths. And bearing in mind, like this year alone, well, the figures are for 2022 was 4,907 drug-related deaths in England and Wales. So it was like 1,300 in Scotland, Ireland.
Right.
Get them in. It's about 18 people who die every day of a needless and avoidable drug-related death. So 18 people will die today in England and Wales as a result of a drugs overdose. Around two-thirds of all drug-related deaths involve an opiate like heroin or methadone or codeine or something like that. This is going to reverse that instantly. It's going to keep people
Wow.
alive. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's an
Wow.
absolute no-brainer. So after about 4 weeks, I found somebody in the organization who said, yes, we do. And I was like, come on, can I get trained? And she said, I need to ask me boss. And I said, I don't understand why you need to ask your fucking boss. It was really difficult to get access to naloxone and it shouldn't be. And
Yeah.
then they sent us an email to say, they couldn't action your request. Dear George, we're very sorry, we can't action your request. So on that day, they didn't give us a naloxone kit, and thank fuck they didn't, because if they had done, if on that first phone call they had said, "Oh, just come down and we'll train you," I just would have went down, being trained, got it, and moved on. But the very fact that they said that I couldn't have it put fire in my belly, and I'm definitely the guy who kind of like, if you tell me no, I can't do something, fucking watch out because I'm fucking doing it. So I ended up going, right, I'm not having it. So then I got in touch with the people who make this. I kind of got a bit of information, advice, and guidance from them. I went and spent a little bit of time in Scotland with a couple of lads up there who were doing some of the peer-to-peer stuff. So when we talk about peers, like as a drug user, other drug users are my peers, I'm their peers. So peer-to-peer suggests that like people with lived or living experience of addiction, they go out into the community and they train and supply naloxone and then give it to other people. So I went and pushed on a local drug treatment provider's door, a different one, with my mate Danny Ahmed, and said, can I, if I bring my own wages for 12 weeks, can I have a desk? Can I get access to your clients? And will you give us this stuff? And they said, what are you going to do? I said, I want to develop a peer-led project where we give ownership to the project to the punters themselves, and that we get them going out in the community to save the lives of their mates. And Danny was like, I 100%, man, just get it on. So we ended up kind of setting up this first project in England about 3.5 years ago. And what I do is I like to tell, like, which you know, because of social media, I like to tell like the stories of the peers and the journey that I'm on,
Yeah,
not from the point of view of saying, look how awesome I am, because I am, but it's not about me, it's about the peers, right? I like to tell the stories of the peers and show people the amazing things that they do so we can really start to challenge this idea of like junkies and all this bullshit. Like I don't want to hear anyone talking about junkies around me because I'll fucking tear you and you arsehole. I'm not a hard man, but you're not going to demonize and vilify people like that. So like anyone watching your podcast who maybe is just kind of going, "Oh, are you a food junkie?" Cut that shit out, man. It's
yeah,
fucking
absolutely. Yeah,
ugly.
yeah,
It's ugly narrative. Do you know what I mean? So recruited a few peers down in Middlesbrough. We built the harm reduction union. We legitimized that as a little social enterprise. But then by cascading it all out on social media, what I knew was that like I knew there'd be another provider who looked at the peers doing that thing, would see it as really dynamic and come and knock on my door to go like, can we have one? Can we have a project? And basically that's what happened. So We Are With You came. That was the second one, and I think I ended up at one point where I had like the Middlesbrough project and the Red Car project both at the same time, and my head fucking battered. Like, going, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Like, I don't think I can do these two projects. And then, like, since then, went on over the last 3.5 years and done like 65 projects across the UK. And like, I'm spinning now about fucking 6 or 7 projects together in one go, which really just shows like how you can really develop your mindset actually to be thinking like all like just 3.5, 4 years ago, one project my head was fucking busting. Two, I was like back beating myself again because I didn't think I could do it. Whereas
yeah.
now it's like fucking bring them, man. Let's just fucking let's have them. And you know what, man? It's just been really it's beautiful, man. It's beautiful to see lads and lasses who've had a lifetime being told that they don't mean anything, that they're the scum of the earth, waste of space, lock them up, just fucking kill yourself. Like, you know what I mean? You're nothing, you'll never be anything. They've had like decades of that. Then they come along and work with me and Mighty Mick, who I work with, me wingman, and in a matter of days, like we build these projects with them and we give the projects to them. So it's not like I have 65 projects which belong to me. What we do is we give ownership of the project back to the peers themselves, and then kind of they go out into the community and they're connecting with their mates and showing their pals how to use it. They're connecting with like members of the general public. Last week I was in Croydon for 2 days. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday I was in Croydon, and went from Croydon across to Kent. The Croydon group, Croydon Crush, that's the name they call themselves. Croydon Recovery User Self Help. Then we went to Ashford in Kent, and that group called themselves LSD, which is a fucking
I
great name,
saw that. Yeah, that was great.
like life-saving dealers. And then
Yeah.
so those guys in 2 days, they went out and done like they've trained and supplied 108 of those kits in 2 days. And I bet you any money that's more than the whole of the organization did in all of its contracts across the whole of Kent. But then when you
Yeah.
speak to the lads and lasses there, man, the humility that they've got, the gratitude that they've got for these projects is like the it's aspiration, it's life affirming for them, it's really life changing for them. And always for me, I always kind of try and just think back to that day I got that certificate and how that made me feel. And I kind of try and replicate that for all those lads and lasses that I work with, like
You know,
that.
that's what I was going to say. It's like they've suddenly got a purpose. So, like when you passed that with your certificate, it was like, right, okay, I've got a purpose. I'm good at this. And that is like, it's absolutely amazing that you're just up and down the country, you're giving people a purpose that's spreading like what wildfire. It's like a ripple effect,
Yeah.
and it's saving lives as well.
100%. And you know what it is? Lots of the lads and lasses on that program, like me, somebody's used that already on them to save their lives. So like we then go out into the community and we talk from first-hand experience, saying like that this product, yeah, I wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for this. And somebody cared enough to carry naloxone. I mean, it's just a little plastic box, with like has a syringe in it and has a
Yeah,
pin in it. When we give naloxone, it's very simple. It's like you have like just not everyone's into needles, but there's a nasal version. So literally, when somebody's unresponsive, and they've got like blue lips, cyanosis, they've got like the death rattle, they won't wake with a shout or a shake, pinpoint pupils, pale or clammy skin.
mm,
If we're shaking somebody and they're unresponsive, it's really simple. You would phone 999. you would tell the ambulance, the call handlers that we've come across somebody who is unresponsive and we think they might have been in an overdose situation and that we've got naloxone and we're going to use it. The call handlers have protocols for using this stuff, so they would help to get the person calm in terms of administering it. And obviously, drug users wouldn't administer this themselves. They can't because they're
Yeah.
unconscious and unresponsive. So we train people to recognize that like naloxone goes in the top of the arm or it goes in the fatty part of the leg. It's intramuscular and it goes through clothing, so we don't have to start getting people naked. Well, not unless they're fucking gorgeous. No, sorry, that's bad taste.
There he goes.
And then what we train in people is that in there's 5 doses. And every time we give a dose of naloxone, we do so every 2 to 3 minutes, which is like enough time there to keep somebody alive for like, what's that, 15 minutes? Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's really
yeah,
simple. You're just literally going to take the cap off the end and you're going to go straight through the clothing. You're going to inject to the first black line, remove it. You're going to rest it in a cradle and wait 2 to 3 minutes to see if the person responds. If they don't respond, you're going to pick it back up, go back in, inject to the next black line, and you're going to keep doing that until such time as the person comes round or an ambulance arrives. And invariably, people's lives are being saved. Like
yeah,
you alluded to it earlier, somebody's son, somebody's daughter,
yeah,
somebody's husband, somebody's wife, somebody is going to be alive today because of
yeah,
this life-saving intervention, which is free for anybody across the whole of the UK. You don't have to work in drug treatment services. You don't have to work with drug users. Like literally wherever you are, excuse me, wherever you are in the country, you could Google local drug treatment provider and phone up your local drug treatment provider and just say, I've just seen George and Awesome Amy doing a fucking podcast. He's doing some stuff around naloxone. Can I come and get trained? They'll say, come down and get it. Takes 10 minutes to get trained, and then they'll give you one of these. Or they'll give you, like, if you're not a fan of needles, then you have like a little intranasal one, which literally just goes up the nose, and then one jab of that does the same job. But I
yeah,
think like all of us can kind of take some responsibility in showing a bit of love and humanity and compassion for all people, but
yeah.
certainly for people in our communities who are sat out begging and destitute. Like if they look like they're asleep, like for me, I'm giving people a little shake, me, but like you got to be a little bit careful with that because people will tell you to fuck off, leave us alone. At least if they're telling us to fuck off and leave us alone, they're
Mm,
responsive, they're alive, so I know that they're okay. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Whereas there's a lot of people across the UK, I'll give them a shake. Hello, mate. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No response. People just think they're sleeping. People walk past people thinking they're sleeping and are not. They're fucking dying on my streets. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of just feel like this project here around peer-to-peer naloxone has been really fantastic. And then it's allowed us now to kind of go, well, if they can do this with naloxone, what else can they do? So
yeah,
we do dry blood spot testing for hepatitis C, peer-led condoms. So they'll take condoms and lubricant out, they'll give that stuff out, drug litter projects, like they do just all kinds of amazing things out in the community. And it's just really like it's beautiful to be part of that, man. Really is. Slush.
yeah. You're full of love, mate, and you just share it around. And like I say, it's just like a ripple effect, isn't it? It's great.
I totally, you know what it is, but Amy, it's the same with you, man. Like your stuff's really important in what you do, and you're the same. I can bank on every morning that I wake up, seeing you and your love and your energy and positivity and all of that kind of stuff that goes on in the work that you do. And like I feel for me, like the only way you keep what you have is by giving it away, isn't it? At the end of the day, and like. And that has to be all of that for me, that has to be like not just talking about the good stuff and the stuff that's going really well in terms of like work and kind of stuff like that, but it's also about being able to have the courage actually to talk about some of those darker things, because like it's in those moments where people then feel able, it's permission given by me being open and honest about my experiences. It gives other people permission to be open about the things that maybe they've been hiding and carrying for decades. Do you know what I mean? And that's really beautiful to kind of be in a place where people who I don't even fucking know, like, message me and talk about shit like that, saying that, like,
Yes.
the feel trying for them to address their problems because they've heard me talking like this.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. I think it's so important when people can resonate with you. I think that's the key. I think,
yeah,
like I say, is if you hadn't have been through all of that, I think people would have struggled to resonate on the level that they do resonate with you. And I think that's the powerful thing, isn't it?
And you know what, man? Like, and fuck knows what I would have been doing as well. You know, the way I was in the northeast of England, I didn't have a trade. Like, I wasn't good at anything really. Like, I'm not hands-on with anything. I'm not allowed. I'm allowed to use the Hoover and the washing machine here. I've just graduated to that. Like, can't and that. I'm no good with shit like that. So who knows what my life journey would have been like? And whilst it was painful to experience a lot of that stuff, and whilst I have got a lot of like guilt for the stuff that my parents and others people went through as a result of me, like the other side of it is that like we can come out and do absolutely amazing things, but equally it kind of keeps it's really important for me to keep saying, that like success we shouldn't be kind of looking at it was weird, like at the Morty thing, right? Like I felt all of that love there, right? But when it came to like talking about like my goals and my wins and stuff like that, the one that got the round of applause was about money, right? That was the one that got the
Fantastic.
biggest round of applause was
Yeah.
about money, and it's the
Mm,
least important fucking thing of all to me. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like for me, it's like it's the appreciation of like the right here, the right now, the ability to do good, to help fucking others. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
money's just a byproduct of kind of the thing that
Yeah.
I do. Do you know what I mean? And I really feel just dead blessed, man, to be able to help people to find their place in the world, to be part of that. Like fucking, you can't put an amount of money on that, like that
No.
values that. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know, man. I just feel fucking very blessed and very grateful, and I'm more mad for this shit now than I was when I started doing it 20 years ago. I just feel fucking, it's great, man. Love it.
I love that. Well, I've got a question to ask you that I ask everybody, and this is Jarino's fault. So when I interviewed Jarino, I asked him this question
Yeah,
first
it's
and back
great
straight back
interview.
at him. And yeah, knocked him straight out of his comfort zone. George, tell me three good things about yourself.
Oh gosh. Well, yeah, me partner is fucking amazing.
Yes.
I've definitely got a good partner. I kind of feel like I think I'm a for a 50-year-old bloke. I think I'm relatively fucking handsome. Well, I don't think I'm relatively handsome. I call myself gorgeous George for
I was
fuck's
like,
sake.
so you're gorgeous, mate. You're gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you. And then I absolutely love spending time with my daughters, Madison and Charlotte. I don't get to see Charlotte as much as I'd like to because she's away in Manchester, but little Maddie, I've seen her every day. And I man, like that, I'm a good dad, man. I'm a
You
good dad.
are. You are.
Thank you.
So, people listening to the podcast, where can they find you? Because you really have got to follow George on social media. It's absolutely hilarious. It's like I say, every morning I just smile at your posts.
Please, that fucking amuse you. So Facebook is George Charlton Training Consultancy Services. On Twitter, it's at GBMC73, and then fucking just search for George Charlton on LinkedIn. I'm not really a fan of LinkedIn too much. I
No,
go on
I'm
there.
not.
I work myself on there, so people go, "Oh, you can't really be posting like that on there." That's the reason I go on to fucking post just to work me ticket. Out of interest, tell me three things about you. So, what was the question?
Oh, wait, that's not fair.
No, go on.
I am a passionate person and believe heavily in what I do. Um,
Go on.
oh, shit.
Um,
Do you know what? Oh, I should have known you'd do this. I'm a good mom. I am a good
you.
mom, and do you know what? I'm a nice person in the fact that I don't pull people down. I actually celebrate people's successes.
Yeah, man. No, I'll have that. I agree with all that. You can have them. I agree that you are those things. No, it's cool, man. It's fucking cool, isn't it? And you know what it is? And like again, I guess like just a quick shout out to kind of because we all do our own individual things as well. But I guess for me, bit of a shout out to kind of Morty and Leslie and the lads and lasses in our circle and stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
my journey has been kind of like it's been frenetic and crazy and all the rest of it. Then I got my shit together. Then it was still frenetic and crazy and messy and like I was getting stuff done, but I was like a fucking Taz, like that. And weirdly, like 2.5 years ago, getting on that 28-day program, like it was just I can't remember what it was I fucking paid for it. It was an amount of money in anyway, and I wasn't really sure what I was getting myself into. But then like going from the 28-day into the 90-day program, and then from the 90-day program into the Unstoppable program, and then being like being able to connect with people like you, Amy, do you know what I mean? And the other lads and lasses and that, it's just been fucking brilliant, man. Because there's so much love around us, isn't there? You know what I mean? There's so much kind of like energy and inspiration and innovation, and we're all just kind of heading in the same direction. And I kind of feel really blessed and grateful for that, because it's like it's helped me, man. Where at one point I used to use this given substance to change the way that I feel. Now I'm kind of using all of the tools and strategies that we get off Paul and others and each other. Do you know what I mean? To kind
Yeah.
of be able to wake up in the morning and you know, like I fucking say this, I don't know whether people believe this, right? But I wake up in the morning. I haven't the last week or so because I felt a bit shit. But even when I feel a bit shit, I'm still fucking waking up, so I'm alive and well in it. But normally I open my eyes right in the morning and I go like that, 6 o'clock, half five, 6 o'clock. I go, rush downstairs, put the kettle on, get me fucking journal, and I'm excited filling out the journal. It's not like, oh, it's early and that. Fuck that, man. It's like, let's fucking go, man. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
absolutely. Yeah.
Let's get in the journal. Let's fucking go. People go, what are you up to this week? I go, I'll just look at my journal because it's already mapped. The whole
Yeah,
week,
yeah.
the month's mapped, the quarter's mapped. Let's fucking go. Innit?
Yeah.
Mint. Fucking mint.
Oh, mate, I've got to tell you, I love you to bits. You are fucking incredible. I feel honoured to know you. And thank you so much for joining
My
me
pleasure, man.
today. So, anybody listening, make sure you follow George. You will not regret it. And he sometimes sings as well.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm not
Funny.
fucking. That's not happening.
I mean, look at that smile. Priceless. What can I say?
Come and follow us on my socials. I'll send you a fucking song on there. And also go on to Google, wherever you live, Google local drug treatment provider, get in touch with your treatment provider and go and carry a naloxone kit. I think for me that's kind of like the biggest compliment you could pay me would be to invest 10 minutes out of your life, because that's all it's going to take. It'll take you 10 minutes to find out where to get it from. It'll take you 2 minutes to make a phone call and then 10 minutes to go and see them and get trained. And you could save somebody's life. Do you know what I mean? So,
And that's the important message, isn't it?
yeah,
It's all
man,
about
totally.
lives. My lovely, thank you so much. I will see you soon.
Indeed, you will. Having a,
Yeah.
keep being mega yourself. Love talking to you.
Yes. All right, my lovely, will do. Take care.
Yes, guys. Bye.
Bye.